What's up, everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode of Casters of Horror. I'm Chris Mess.
I'm Shane, and this week we tackle one of the more interesting films we've watched on the show, In a Violent Nature.
Yeah, I'm going to do the whole thing like this. The whole episode.
Seriously considered starting just with my back turned.
Just with your back turned for this. Well, so this is an interesting film. This came out this year, In a Violent Nature. It's written and directed by Chris Nash. It stars a bunch of people you've probably never heard of.
Or a bunch of people you never heard of.
Or probably haven't seen, and still really haven't seen.
Yeah, even if you've watched this film, you still really haven't seen them.
Yeah. So, this is this kind of became popular because of the way that it was filmed. Not necessarily the film itself, but the way that it was filmed. It was filmed from a third-person perspective of the killer. So I was going into it thinking it was like first-person perspective, but turns out it wasn't. It was third person, so it's basically like watching a video game for an hour and a half. A very slow video game, but we'll get into that a little bit more.
I mean, to be fair, how many first-person movies have you actually watched?
Exactly. But I mean, still, this was like who was the cinematographer? A follow-along drone. It was like, it literally was just like hovering right behind his head, for most of the film. But anyway, this is the story about Johnny. Johnny is a vengeful spirit who comes back to life after a locket that was given to him from his mother was taken from his grave. And he comes back and he seeks revenge on all of those who took it from him. And he had died like 60 years prior or something like that. But yeah, he wants it back. So it's the only thing that keeps his body at rest. So this is again, interesting film. Got a lot of popularity. People were like, "Oh my, it's the most gruesome kills I've ever seen." And because people were saying it. They were like, walking out of the theaters, throwing up. This is the next Terrifier. This is what I was hearing from it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But, but it was shot all from the perspective of the killer. So you get a lot of shots just through the woods, the killer walking, kind of plodding along.
Yeah.
And
literally, a lot of times the camera following behind him. Right.
Yeah.
And even there are a few shots like where it seems like he's not present, but most of the time he actually is, even if it's, kind of in the distance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, every once in a while you get shots from a different perspective and you're seeing whoever he's basically his prey, whoever he's stalking, from a different perspective. But you still are aware that he's there, watching. I thought it was very, very interestingly done.
Me too.
The filming of it was quite different. The writing was probably quite small.
Fortunately. All right. So let me just preview of my overall thoughts. Fortunately, there's not a lot of writing
of dialogue. Not much dialogue because, oh man.
I think one of the things that I found really interesting about it was so many times when we are dealing with one of these like masked killer, slasher movies, something will happen like. And you just gotta wonder, like, what the heck? What was the killer even doing there? How did they get there?
Yeah,
the movie answers that, and I think it answers it really well. And a great example of that is there's a classic a scene in a lake, right? And if you've seen a horror movie and there's a lake involved, you know what's going to happen to somebody that's in the lake, and it's like what
skinny dipping.
What? Yeah. Not in this case,
Not in
unfortunately.
this case.
Yeah. But no, it's like, you're always like, well, what the heck was that? The killer just like walking underwater? And like,
Yep.
oh, well, okay. Well, yes.
Yes. Indeed, he did.
Yeah.
There's some of the kills in this film were quite brutal.
Oh, yeah.
I will give it
Oh,
that.
yeah.
There was a couple where I was just like, when I was watching it. But I mean, whoever did the effects on this, they really did a good job with these kills.
Oh, yes.
I'm not going to say that they were the most extravagant, most gruesome ones that I've ever seen, but they were pretty rough. A few of them were pretty rough. Yeah. But
I think that it at least earns the comparison that, some people gave it to like Terrifier, even though I think even in that film, for the most part, there was a lot of hyperbole over, how brutal they were.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So all in all, what did you think of this film? Did it live up to the hype?
Well, first I gotta say, I really didn't know if there was any hype behind this film. I knew about the basic premise going in, and I knew I wanted to see it, right? So I can't say that I was hyped up for it, because I just didn't see a lot of it.
The internet was hyped.
I guess so, yeah. Look, I see no reason to bury the lead here. I actually really enjoyed this film. It has its issues, right? And that does come down to what I said earlier with the dialogue. The writing and the acting are not great, right? The dialogue in particular is pretty bad at times, where it's like, that's not how humans talk.
Yeah.
Right.
You're looking at a B+ film. B+ film. Yeah. Not quite B, not quite A, somewhere right in the middle.
Yeah. And I think I can't help but wonder if a lot of the dialogue was actually ADR'd, right? Because the vast majority of the time when you hear people talking, they're off screen or they're obscured.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just can't help but feel like maybe a lot of these lines were just kind of dubbed over nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And not actually said. And it just, the delivery was not good.
Yeah.
Right?
There was some audio issues. I'll give it that. There was one part where there's a horn honking and all this, and it's really far away. Really, really far away, but it is so loud.
Yeah, very loud. Yeah.
And I'm like, how close is this truck? And it's like way far away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's unrealistic, So it did have a lot of audio issues. I and someone who studied audio for film, this was one of my kind of pet peeves.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I totally get it. You're absolutely right about that. And I also think that, we had mentioned there's a couple times when it seems like the killer's not in frame. I appreciate the fact that for the most part you are following the killer, right? These typical conversations that you hear in horror movies, you're hearing them from a distance for the most part. And when the focus is like on the group, I do think the film suffers there.
Yeah.
But this was a unique concept. I know some people think they didn't pull it off. I actually think they did. This is something that I really enjoyed. I would not want to watch another one like it. Right. Yeah. I think this is a one and done thing, which is a shame, because I think the killer is really good, and his weapon of choice is really unique and interesting.
Yeah.
But I liked this one.
Yeah.
And I liked it so much, it's going to end up pretty high on my list. I just feel like they really did like get the aesthetic that they were going for. And yeah, you mentioned it being kind of like slow and plodding. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But I liked the shift in perspective. It absolutely worked for me. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's definitely a film that I went back mentally thinking about a lot. And really going back and saying, yeah, that worked. That worked, and that really didn't. And so it made me think a lot. I think for me, without giving anything away, I think the ending was probably one of the more tense parts of the whole film.
Absolutely. I wasn't sure how I felt about the ending at first. I had to go back and think about it, and that tenseness, I think that was the point of the structure of the ending.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that, where it was like I wasn't quite for sure how to take what happens, but I dug it in the end. So all in all, it was a really, really good film. To me, would it make it on the top of my list? I don't know. That's a difficult one for me. So we'll have to see when our countdown comes out later on this year. But let us know what you guys thought of Violent Nature. Did you guys check it out? What is your opinion? Would you like to follow a serial killer around? Put it down in the comments down below. And while you're there, make sure to hit like and subscribe. You know what? Put down what serial killer you'd like to follow around. If there was one killer from a film and you just wanted to follow him around, put it down in the comments. Let us know which one it is. But make sure, hit like and subscribe. Like I said, Shane, I think it was a good one.
I do too.
It was a good film.
It was good. It had problems, but you know what?
They were
the movies we watched do so
for the concept and for how it was. I think they're overlookable. I really do.
I do too. I really think that the execution on this one was very well done.
Yeah.
Right. It will absolutely be one of those movies that if someone sits here and lists off the reasons they didn't like it, I'd be like, yep, I get it. I totally get it. But it worked for me. I liked it.
Yeah. This one's going to end up being a cult classic, I'm sure of it. Anyway, stay tuned for next week. We've got another great film for you guys to check out. Hopefully, we haven't watched it yet, but we'll at least have a great podcast, so we can at least say that. So
it should at least be an interesting one.
It should be. Oh, bother. Until next week, I'm Chris Mess.
I'm Shane.
Hey, I get to say it again. Get the hell out of here. We'll see you guys.
See ya.